Most people think change happens by fighting what's wrong. And when I say fighting, people are fighting bad habits. You may be fighting the negative thinking. You may even be fighting your old patterns. And so resistance, and I really have to be honest here, resistance is exhausting. And exhaustion is why most change collapses over time. The mind doesn't renew by force, it renews by replacing it. And so the question here isn't, how do I stop thinking this? It really is, what am I training my mind to return to instead?
Are you tired of feeling stuck in negative habits? Ready to break free and build the life you've always dreamed of? In Disruptive Habits, Breaking Free, Robert L. Robinson III shares powerful insights and practical strategies to help you as a leader identify negative and destructive patterns, develop unshakable resilience in the face of setbacks, and transform your mindset and unlock your full potential. This book is a blueprint for lasting transformation. Whether you're struggling with procrastination, self-doubt, negative self-talk, or any other limiting habit, this book will help you gain clarity on your life's purpose and give you practical strategies for gaining and maintaining momentum. Don't settle for a life of mediocrity and unfulfilled potential. It's time to disrupt your habits, break free from what's holding you back, and step into the extraordinary life you were meant to live. Don't wait any longer. Start your journey of self-awareness and transformation today with Disruptive Habits, Breaking Free. Uncover the keys to unlocking your best self and leading with excellence. Get your copy now at robertlrobinson3.com.
Hi, my name is Robert L. Robinson III, and I'm the author of a powerful habit transformation book that I've titled Disruptive Habits, Breaking Free. I help leaders just like yourself, not with inspiration, definitely not motivation, but like to give you practical solutions in order for you to identify your negative habits, replace them with more positive ones in order to build the life that you've always dreamed of. And so let's get right into it. Today we're going to be talking about habit replacement. So by now, most people are very self-aware. They know and they have noticed their thoughts. They've noticed their beliefs. They've identified those things in their life. They've even went with naming their scripts, the unconscious thoughts that they are doing day in, day out. But awareness alone, it does not really create long-term change. This is where I used to say things, and maybe you're saying them as well, that I know better now, or I'm trying my best to think differently. But then what I realized is that when I was saying those things, nothing really ever stuck with me. And this is because the brain, it doesn't renew by deletion. It renews by your replacement. If you remove an old pattern without really installing a new pattern with it, then the mind, it defaults back to what is familiar, what you have been doing. And this is not because it is bad, but your mind is trained. Neuroscience, it shows us something very simple, and it's a very uncomfortable truth. The brain is always returning to what it's been practiced most. And so if a pathway weakens, but nothing really replaces that behavior, then the brain is constantly searching for efficiency. It goes back to the old language that you're saying. It goes back to your old scripts. It even goes back to your old habits. And this is why people say that I know better, but I still do it time and time again. The Bible even says that I I want to do right, but then evil is constantly present in my life. Renewal doesn't happen by avoidance. It happens by the repetition of replacement. The brain changes by what it returns to when pressure mounts in your life. I can remember reading a book by Charles Duhigg. It's called The Power of Habit. Now, Duhigg, he explains that habits, they don't disappear. The cue stays, the reward stays, but what changes in this habit loop is the routine. You don't erase the loop, you replace the behavior that's inside of it. And that is replacement, and it's not resistance. And I see this constantly play out day in, day out in leadership. I once worked with a leader who had become very aware of his actions. He could catch frustration very quickly. He could even name the moment that tension had showed up, but then nothing changed. And he really was asking, why is nothing ever changing? Because every time that he had stopped that old response, there was nothing to replace or return it to. Remember the lesson here, that habits aren't changed simply by stopping that behavior. Habits are changed primarily by replacement. So under pressure, the brain had defaulted back to that old pattern, that old way of thinking, that old belief. Everything had shifted when we started working together, and we had stopped asking, how do I stop reacting like this? And we started asking, what response do I practice returning to? We started to identify a replacement. It was a specific phrase that he had started to return to, a lower rhythm in his decisions, and even a consistent response when pressure mounted. Once that replacement was practiced repeatedly over time, renewal stopped feeling forced. It started to become familiar, and that's where we want it. That's the difference that leaders really miss. You don't correct reactions into change. You train your replacements into your default mechanism. This is very critical for leaders. Most leaders, we try to change culture by correcting it. You're good at addressing what's wrong. You're good at calling out the behavior. You even try to challenge different patterns. But correction without replacement, it creates a lot of confusion. So a leader could say that we can't think this way anymore, but then they never clarify what replaces it. And then the team, guess what? They default back to the old language because you haven't clarified what we're replacing it with. High-level leaders, we just don't correct culture, but we install the new culture. We decide what language gets repeated. We decide the interpretation when it becomes normal. And then when the team returns to under pressure. Because culture changes when leaders intentionally repeat what they want people to default to. And so here's the shift, and we'll get out of here. I don't want you to wait for pressure to decide what you're going to return to. Instead, I want you to choose it in advance. And when this shows up, you have to ask yourself, what do I constantly return to? And I don't want you to replace it with a motivational phrase. I want you to replace it with a grounded, repeatable replacement. Renewal becomes sustainable when replacement is practiced before the pressure arrives. And this is what we have been talking about. It's not really about fixing yourself. It's really about understanding how your inner system actually works. Your thoughts become your beliefs become your scripts, and then your scripts, you ultimately have to replace those things. Because renewal doesn't happen by resisting the old habits or the old behavior. It happens by training that new behavior. If this resonates with you, I want you to comment below and let me know what you're trying to replace, the old pattern and what you're replacing it with. In fact, I want you to go to even my website, and it's robertlrobinson3, the number 3.com. And on there is what I've called the build strategy. It's an ebook, and it's going to start you on your transformation journey, because transformation, it doesn't happen by accident. It's built over time. It's built system after system. And so, as always, remember, follow the blueprint.